Welcome back to Girls Unplugged, where we will no longer be numbering our episodes because we really messed that up last time.
We should not be numbering episodes when we film in batches and decide to change.
Then we do impromptu episodes about chaos, and then we fuck it all up. So we're not going to do that anymore. But this is the podcast where we talk all things books, girlhood, chaos, and this week we are talking some serious BookTok tea because it's all been going on the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, there's been the Luke Bateman publishing deal. There's been the Ali Hazelwood Team Gale nonsense. And I don't know if you've seen the latest Boys of Tommen drama as well about the AI edit.
I haven't actually seen it. You mentioned it earlier, but I have not seen any of this, but I'm really not surprised.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much to discuss today. We could talk about it all day.
And who doesn't love a bit of controversy?
True.
And to hear us yap about the idiots on the internet.
Yeah. We're probably going to have strong opinions too.
Always. Let's get into it. So, if you've been living under a rock and have missed it, the first thing we're going to talk about, because it happened a few weeks ago, is Luke Bateman getting a publishing deal.
Yes.
So, if you don't know, basically what happened is Luke Bateman is like a typical Australian man. Within his first video of joining BookTok, he got something like 30,000 followers overnight. He came on, started talking about the fact that he reads fantasy books, got 30,000 followers. Within days, it was hundreds of thousands. And maybe within a month, don't quote me on timelines because I don't know fact for fact, but within like a month or so, he was offered a 2-book publishing deal by Simon & Schuster Australia.
Yeah, I think so. It's an imprint, but I can't remember what the overall...
We're going to double check who it was and we'll put it on screen.
Yeah.
But he was offered a 2-book publishing deal even though he hasn't actually written a book yet.
Yes. The famous quote is, he has a concept of a book.
Yes.
Yes.
So, that is the tea. Everyone has gone mental about it.
So many different opinions.
So many opinions, and some are valid.
Yeah.
So there are some valid points that are being made. It's like the general consensus of what's being said, I feel like, is fine in that there are so many people that have been working so hard for many years to write good books.
Yeah.
You know, and they've just come along and a good looking white man who hasn't even written a book has got a publishing deal. It's not ideal.
No, it's not. I mean, it's one of those things where you can be disappointed with the situation, but I think it comes back to, again, our exact point in our episode where we discussed the off-campus casting backlash, which we'll link if you want to listen to that one, is it's when it turns personal.
And just nasty.
Just nasty. You know, yes, Luke has been in a very privileged position to get this opportunity. Is it necessarily a fair opportunity? Probably not. But you would be lying, any of us would be lying if we said we would turn down that deal.
100%. Well, I probably would because I can't write shit. They'd have to get me in a ghostwriter.
Well, they probably will. They might do that.
Well, he might be really talented.
He might.
The point is, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. But also, like, this is not a new concept. For years and years and years, we've had celebrity books written by ghostwriters. Marketing is a tool across every industry, right? Someone with a big following like that is great marketing opportunities for a publisher. They're going to sell books based on their name alone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is. You know, if I saw a book about one of my favourite actresses, of course I'd be more inclined to read that than a biography about someone I don't know.
Yeah, of course.
It's just the way it works. But I wholeheartedly agree with the discussion of, you know, yes, he is a white man. It's already quite a privileged sort of sector to be in. There are huge BookTokers, even male ones, who have the same size accounts, if not bigger, who have not been offered those deals, who have been on BookTok reviewing books for years, or, you know, they're people of colour. Maybe, like, why don't they have that opportunity? I mean, you know, Arif Kwong has a really great interview where she actually talks about how you can trace back more black authors being published when Toni Morrison was working in editorial publishing, and then there's been a decline again. And so it's just like a fact that people of colour don't get published as much, no matter what people think, it's still statistically true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, would it have been great to see a big BookToker that's a woman or of colour or disabled get that opportunity? Of course it would. Mm-hmm. But do I think you should be writing nasty comments on Luke's page? Do I think people should be directly targeting him as a person? No.
Yeah. 100%. And I also think that actually the people that infuriate me the most are the people that just jump on the hype and don't actually go back and check the facts, because I can't count how many comments and videos I saw where it was like some good looking white man has come along, intentionally started reading ACOTAR, and then for clout. Yeah. And actually that really annoyed me, because I was like, yes, I do believe he's in a position of privilege, and I do believe that other people should potentially have been given those opportunities before him.
Yeah.
But his very first video, and of course I watched it because, you know, who didn't? Everyone was talking about it. He clearly is a high fantasy reader.
Oh, yeah.
He reads books by Robin Hobb. He's clearly been reading high fantasy for a very long time. He didn't just pick up ACOTAR as his first thing and be like, you know, something ridiculous. That's not what he's done. He has very genuinely started a BookTok account. Of course, he clearly knows he's good looking.
Yeah.
He clearly knows, because he even said, like, my friends told me I should start this account because I like reading, da-da-da-da.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he would likely come from it.
Yeah.
Could potentially come from it.
Yeah.
You never know.
No, there's no guarantee.
But he is a genuine reader, and he's a high fantasy reader. He's not just come on, picked up romance and gone, come for me, ladies. Like,
no.
And that's what a lot of people have made it out to be, and I think that was unfair because it's completely factually fucking incorrect.
Yeah, and also, like, people didn't really realise until after the fact that he had already been on The Bachelor, I think.
Yes,
in
I saw something about that, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously his following is going to grow quickly as well. It's like, if you have a big influencer in the beauty sector and then they do books, they already have an established community.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to penalise them for that and say that those followers shouldn't follow them?
Yeah.
It's just, you know, if you've worked hard to build fans or a community elsewhere, you're going to grow quicker. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's plenty of BookTokers that have that.
Yeah, exactly. And also, 100%, like, he clearly loves high fantasy books, and he actually didn't start reading, because I follow him, and that's another thing. People are like, well, we've made it this way because we follow him. Well, yeah, some people might follow him for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. They were thirsting over him, leaving comments. I followed him about 3 weeks after he started, or maybe like 2 weeks after he started, because I saw him talking about Robin Hobb.
Mm-hmm.
And I commented on his video saying, you should really read The Sword of Kaigan, you will love it from your book taste. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of my fellow high fantasy book lovers also there that were leaving, you know, actual kind of constructive, book relevant comments.
Yeah.
Yes, there are people there just complimenting his appearance, but that's their prerogative. If they want to do that, we can't stop them.
No.
But he did not start reading ACOTAR until everyone had like badgered him for a while.
Yeah.
And he actually kind of like, not negatively reviewed it, but you could tell that he was a bit like, when he was first reading it, you know? He was honest about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely, it's just one of those situations where it gets so out of hand.
Yeah.
You can have a big picture discussion about the ethics of the publishing world and that decision that they have made without, dragging someone down with it. Because apparently as well, this publisher has a history of doing this. They do pick famous people or bloggers and offer them deals. So it's not out of the norm. It's not. He's not the first person this has happened to. But for me, I prefer to focus on male BookTokers that I would like to see get that opportunity. Trey Reeds, you know, he's got tons of followers. Such a funny guy. Like, love his videos. You know, there's loads of people and women. I'd like to see women blow up as quickly as that. Yeah. But, you know, that's slightly harder to do.
Well, yeah, because women just naturally tend to hate other women as a natural prerogative, unfortunately. And we're a female-dominated... It's, like, no different to how, like, your alternative TikTok account, where you're, like, showing skin, you're talking about music, and you're being less you know, you're not analytically like reviewing books and using your intelligence. You're just like talking about your song choices and like, showing off your like your kind of outfits and stuff. And you have a much more male dominated following on that account.
100%. So it actually terrifies me because yesterday I got 75 new followers and about 2 of them were women. Completely the opposite to my BookTok, right? My BookTok is like something like 93% women.
Yeah, mine's 95% women.
Yeah, it's completely the opposite on alternative / music TikTok, and it's scary. But it is also like such a different experience. I feel like they follow you, but they also leave rude comments. Whereas like the women on BookTok take longer to follow you, but real, genuine, lovely comments, friendships come out of it. So it's very weird to compare the two. But yeah, it definitely. I mean, I know women, well, us included, that have been on BookTok for like 3, 4, 5 years, basically since the TikTok app changed from Musical.ly, and still only have like 30,000 followers, even though their videos are great. You know, they're doing really great reviews, recommending books that are less known. It's just so much harder. I mean, obviously, the whole sector of BookTok is oversaturated now as well. There's so many more people than there was at the start.
100%.
But yeah, I mean,
and everybody wants. It's not just there's a lot of viewers. There is a lot of people wanting to make content now, and then they naturally. It's harder to get a follow out of those people because they want to keep their follower counts down, and I just think it is an oversaturated market. But I just think in this overall situation, he is not the problem.
No.
He is not the problem. Like, he hasn't really done anything wrong. I actually don't think he's done anything wrong. Although I don't watch every single video.
I actually think he seems really sweet.
Yeah, he seems like a really nice guy. Like, we don't know him and I get that. But he hasn't done anything wrong. So the personal attacks were just fucking savage. And actually the problem is with the publishers, and why isn't anybody holding them to account for what's happened? Like, clearly... Yeah. Obviously, I mean, I've seen nothing about them releasing any type of like statement or anything towards it, which of course they wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I think the other problem during this timeline, one of the things that was called out so heavily was that Tracy Dion had just published Oathbound, and it had like zero marketing. People were going into book like Barnes and Nobles in the States. It wasn't out on the main tables.
Yep.
There was hardly any copies in store. So that which is a fucking phenomenal series.
Yeah.
It's got a huge like natural fan base already as well, and it still is picking up new readers now, including me. I just like devoured them literally in the last month. And it got no marketing.
No marketing, and I feel like it never has had marketing.
Which is crazy.
Every marketing I see of that series is fan based. It's BookTokers talking about it. I heard about it from BookTok. I've passed it on to friends and vice versa, and we've all shared it with each other and on our feeds. When I saw in America that Oathbound had come out and it wasn't even on the main tables at Barnes and Noble, I was so baffled because it was one of the most anticipated releases for this year. And it's such a phenomenal series, like Tor said. I don't know a single person that doesn't like it. There might be people that wasn't 5-star, like it was for me, but I've never seen anyone give it less than like 3.5 stars. And it's just so annoying. And I could talk about N.E. Davenport as well. So she's the author of The Blood Trials, right? She was originally like meant to write as a trilogy, and they refused to let her do the 3rd book, so she had to condense it down into a duology, and they just didn't market it. And you know, the book 2, I haven't actually read it yet, but book 2 gets lower ratings, and a lot of people say it's because it feels rushed, because you know, it wasn't given the execution it deserved. And it's just stuff like that where it's like people are crying out in BookTok for diversity. We love story, well, most of us love stories with interesting characters, complex storylines, something that's new and fresh and unique. Yet they seem content to only give us the same types of author, the same types of story. And yes, we like those too, but it would be great to have a lot of choice, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because the problem is when you read the same thing all the time, you get bored.
Yeah, and also, I know that some people think you can't learn from fiction, right? That is so untrue for me. And reading about somebody else's lived experience that I will never experience is so helpful. And it feel like as a kid it taught me like empathy and things like that, and you know, you have to have that variety in stories to get that, but it's so hard to find sometimes, and they make it hard to find by continuously doing things like this.
Yeah, I just think how will the cycle close itself off? Will it ever? Are we gonna, because ultimately as well, the BookTok, the Bookstagram trend will ultimately die off at some point.
Yeah.
Like everything does.
Yeah.
And publishers are going to struggle to be picking these things up and selling these books. And I'm like,
yeah,
make some changes. Make some changes that readers actually want to see.
To sum up, I think the issue is with the publishing industry as a whole, not Luke.
Not Luke, yeah. And I think for now, as far as I've seen, he hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Where you will know if it was, like, I just hope that whatever he writes, if he ends up writing this book, that he sticks true to what he clearly likes. That's when you'll know it wasn't authentic, if he comes out with a fucking spicy romantic book. Do you know what I mean? That's when you're gonna be like, oh come on, like,
yeah,
now I'm not gonna back you.
Yeah, we will see. Maybe we'll do a part 2 when it's out. We'll review it.
Hopefully we're still podcasting 2028.
Yeah. Okay, so this next one actually genuinely made me sad, because Ali Hazelwood has been driven off Instagram by an absolute mob, and as you know, she's one of my favourite authors, and I actually think she's a really, or seems like, obviously I don't know her person, but she seems like a really great person.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, essentially there was like a clip from a panel where I think it was Megan Quinn, Ali Hazelwood and someone else were doing a little interview.
Okay, and because I actually don't know exactly, I know what's been happening, but I don't actually know the details.
Yeah. So they were doing like a little interview panel, and one of my mutuals was actually there in person, and essentially...
Where was it?
I don't know, it was in America, but I don't know where.
Oh, okay.
They were talking about the Hunger Games, and the moderator was saying that she's Team Peter, and Ali was like, no way, I am Team Gale, Peter's useless. Literally joking, so clear that it was just a fun, jokey conversation. People kicked off big time, and then they started going over to her Instagram, where she had joint collaboration posts with other authors, because they're doing like a dystopian romance anthology together.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, and filling these posts with like hate comments about Ali, to the point where she felt bad for her fellow authors and like left Instagram. Now, I have since seen somebody say that actually Ali's friend said she didn't mean to delete Instagram. She was trying to do this setting where you like turned off comments or something, and she deleted her Instagram. So don't know which one is true, but either way, people were leaving hateful messages about a fictional love triangle from a young adult book series that's about 10 years old at this point.
Do you know what? I'm going to give you guys something to hate. I don't like the Hunger Games. I don't like the Hunger Games. It's shit. I didn't like the films. I didn't read the books. There. Hate me instead. Cancel our podcast. Cancel my TikTok. I'm done.
Now we're going to get cancelled and she's going to be driven off Instagram.
No, but seriously, like, the way people get about fictional characters, again, we talked about this in the off-campus episode. This is actually fucking crazy that people would be so nasty. Whether or not Ali Hazelwood is a decent human being, Mother Teresa, or, you know, Hitler, maybe that's a bit far, actually. Don't cancel me. But seriously, like, it doesn't matter what kind of human she is. Nobody in this world deserves to just be bombarded with such hateful behaviour. I'm not going to cry in this episode, guys, because I've got instant fake tan, but I'm holding in the tears. It just truly upsets me, like, deep into my bones. I sit awake at night when some of these things happen, and truly just wonder what people I walk past in the street, or who I might be friends or acquaintances with, that would do things like this.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get, like, and this is coming from someone who does love Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And who is as Team Peter as they come.
Yeah.
Right? But it was so clear that she was joking. And even if she wasn't joking, I said this in my TikTok video, but dystopian at its core is obviously intended to be complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could have a genre that, like romance, like a cowboy romance or something, where the characters are intended to be likeable.
Mm-hmm.
You're meant to relate to them. You're
Mm-hmm.
meant to root for them. There's meant to be a happily ever after. Dystopian is not like that. It's all about a system that is so far gone wrong that nobody can live the way they want. Nobody can live ethically. There's no morals. You know, whatever it may be in this particular dystopian, it's obviously that the capital has created this society that segregates people and treats them like fodder, lambs to the slaughter. These kids are, you know, literally told to kill each other. How can you have characters that are moral and ethical in a society created to be exactly the opposite, right? So yes, Gale does things that are not good, and I personally didn't like him because of that, but it's almost like he's intended to be complex.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's intended to make you think and be like, oh shit, like he can't actually be that good of a person, because how do you overthrow a resistance but be a good person? Like,
mm-hmm.
And it's just like the point of the books went over their head. And I do wonder if some of this is because younger people now have access to tech like this and
Mm-hmm.
social media like
immature
this.
minds.
Yeah, immature minds who are grown up with these characters and really grasp on.
But young children didn't really grow up with these characters now, did they? Like,
Yeah, true,
they
yeah.
released when we were growing up.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I just can't fathom me as someone Team Peter going onto Ali's page and being like, you're this, you're that, you're
Mhm.
disgusting. And I think people have said as well that it's bad that she called Peter useless because he's disabled. Well, first of all, he's not disabled the whole way through the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen until like at least book 2.
I don't even remember what happened.
I can't even remember properly now either, but and she didn't actually say that, so you're putting words in her mouth by saying that.
Yeah.
It's not the point. But yeah, it's just mad. It's absolutely baffling to me. Because as well, like, you know, they're completely different archetypes of characters.
Mhm.
Peter is soft and sensitive, and, you know, he's meant to be like the reassurance for Katniss.
Yeah.
And then the point of Katniss and Gale is that they're quite similar, strong-minded, bullheaded, will like do anything to overthrow the resistance.
Yeah.
So they clash.
And if you take it down to, you know, movies and the looks, I mean, he has a pretty good looking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you can, the thing as well is how many of these people up in these comments are people that like reading books where the villain gets the girl.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many of them are up here reading Emily McIntyre? Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think you could probably guarantee at least 80% of the people commenting and leaving hateful comments are complete hypocrites, complete double standards.
Yeah.
And back to the point we were talking about with Luke a little bit ties in of, would this have happened if a man had done that?
No.
That was like double standards. Do you know what I mean?
Because I can already think of at least one double standard that I see all the time, and like everybody knows how I feel about this. Obviously, Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros get a lot of people saying that they don't want to read their books because of them being Zionists. I've never seen a single person say that about Neil Shusterman, who wrote Scythe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I picked up those books and there was actual propaganda in the books. Like, not just on their social media, not his own personal opinions, in the books. Never seen a single person talk about it on BookTok.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a man, and he's a best-selling author, and he's got a deal that's being translated to movies. So,
and what's his name? The other author that you like.
Piers Brown.
Piers Brown, yeah.
Piers Brown, he's hot, so people forgive him, you know? But there are other authors that are women that don't get that same
Grace.
grace.
Mm.
And I'm not saying I agree with it. my thoughts on that are so complex. We'd have to do a whole episode on that to kind of dive into
I probably
it.
wouldn't be able to keep up with the intelligence level in that episode.
Oh, don't be silly. But yeah, I mean, that's a whole different situation. But there is a difference between the way men are treated and women, for sure, point blank. And unfortunately, even though we're a largely female audience, we participate in that. Not we specifically, we as a community.
I actually have a separate secret spam account where I go and be really nasty to everybody.
Imagine if you were like in Ali's comments like, Team Gale is useless.
Okay, maybe I should create one. I could become a secret BookTok vigilante and I'll go after all the bullies.
In a little Batman mask, like BookTok's bloody Batman.
No,
vigilante.
not Batman. We'd have to go like Charm style, you know, where they turn into those superheroes in their leather outfits.
That's a better one. That's a better idea for sure. Okay, so third bit of BookTok tea and drama. I can't believe how much there's been. Boys of Tommen, AI art.
Yeah, fill me in, because has this happened recently? Because I've seen literally not hide nor hair about this.
In the last week.
How have I not seen this?
Yeah. So, essentially, I haven't actually seen the edit, but I think someone has made an edit of one of the main boy characters in the series. I think it's Joey Lynch. Haven't actually read them.
Neither of us have read these books.
No. And a couple of big TikTokers like commented on it and reposted the video, and then it just blew up because people were saying, you know, these characters are underage, why are you sexualizing them, they're in a school uniform, that's weird, someone literally said you're a 40-year-old woman sexualizing kids. The BookToker is like 29, that's such a violation.
Oh my god, I'd be mortified.
I would cease to exist. So yeah, there's a lot of discourse around this and a lot of... Understandably. So, after they got all these hate comments, one of them did like a little, not a statement, but like a talking video explaining her side of it. And she was just saying that when she reads these books, she reads from the perspective of the female main character. So in her head, she's the same age as them. And she, and she sees them as words on paper. They're not real. They're just fictional characters. And of course she doesn't, do this with actual 17, 18-year-old men or boys in real life. Of course she wouldn't do that. And it's just crazy. And I feel like instantly for me, seeing that, I was like, well, I completely understand where people are coming from with this being inappropriate.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the reasons people will always used to say to me, if I was doing a book boyfriends video and I asked for oh gosh, who should I include in it?
Yeah.
People would say, what about Carden? You love Carden, Cruel Prince. And I'd be like, well, no, because he's 19.
Yeah.
So I don't see him as a book boyfriend. I just see him as a character I love.
Character you love.
Yeah. Because how could I romanticize someone who is a decade younger than me, who is basically a child? If I think about how I was at 18, going to uni, yes, I was legally an adult, but there was so much still to learn. There was so much innocence and naivety.
Yeah.
So I think of it from that perspective. Do I understand people saying it's fictional, it's harmless? Yes.
In some ways. It's a bit of a complex,
it
walking the tightrope with this one, I would say.
It is. Especially, I think, when they're in school uniforms, that's when it crosses the line.
100%. That makes it, for whatever reason, it makes it feel so much creepier.
Yeah.
And I can understand what you're saying in that, you read from the main character's point of view. I get that. And you can enjoy the books and kind of get wrapped up in the romance of whatever you're reading, whoever the character is. But that to me is completely different to then promoting a video romanticizing boys in their school uniform.
Yes.
That is completely different. You can read from that person's point of view and be in that bubble while you're reading. But like I just said, that's completely different to posting about it on your social media, especially when you have a very big following. And I think the problem with this creator is that she's constantly being picked up for, you know, she's the reason that off-campus conversation pretty much started in the first place. I got pissed off on my TikTok about it.
Yeah, and apparently she did actually leave a sexual comment on the edit.
No!
Yeah, again, apparently, haven't actually seen it.
Okay.
I saw someone say that, and quote what she'd said, and I was like, that's vile, but I'm not going to repeat it because A, then you'll definitely know who the person is, and we don't want to direct hate them, even though we disagree. We're not, you know, trying to kind of single that person out necessarily, because it probably is a bigger issue. There's probably loads of people doing that if this edit blew up in the first place.
But when you're a big creator, you have a different responsibility.
You do.
Unfortunately, you do. Your videos naturally go to more people. You are directly influencing other people's behaviour and actions. You are in a position of power and you need to respect that.
And I think if you are continuously being pulled up on things, being criticised, reflect. If it's once, it might just be that people are being harsh.
Yeah.
If it's twice, if it's 3 times, the problem might be you.
Because this is the third time.
This is the third time and that's just the third thing we know of. Yeah.
In a very short amount of time as well, actually.
Literally about 4 months.
Yeah. Awkward.
Very awkward. And I think as well, what makes it worse, which again, haven't read the books, but one of our best friends loves them and she has told me a lot about this. The plot in the books is very traumatic, horrible things happening to these teenagers.
Yeah. So
then also sort of sexualizing them feels a bit weird. I don't know. And that's something that the author has obviously been criticised for in itself.
There was a lot of interesting discussion happening when the latest book came out. What's it called?
Redeeming 10, is it?
Releasing 10. Don't ask me why I have the newest book when I haven't read the first 5 in the series. But I think that the content of the books, again, we haven't read them, the content of the books is pretty heavy, but this most recent one is very, very heavy. Like, my best friend loves these books. She likes the fact that there's a lot to them, and she cried and struggled through a lot of this book, but she loved it.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people kind of up in arms, from what I understand, about the content that was in the book. They felt it was too much. But there were people basically saying this was unnecessary. This is supposed to be a romance series.
Yeah.
Why did it need to be this heavy? But I think Chloe, I don't know if it's herself or her team or something, has come out to basically say that some of this content is based off her own personal experiences.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, she's had a lot of controversy around her in general.
She has.
As an author.
She has, yeah. Listen, this is the whole reason I haven't read them, because I know the heavy stuff they have in them. I know that this last one in particular has like very graphic essay to a child. Yeah. Very, very young child. That's not something I personally want to read about. I read for escapism. Yes, I do read difficult things sometimes, like dystopian, but that is a limit that I would not go to. Yeah. Do I disagree with it being in a book, though? No. I think it should be in books, because that's how you learn, again, like we said earlier, about different people's lived experiences. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is a very real thing that happens to kids, adults everywhere. Yeah, and I think for some people, reading about these things, if you've experienced something like that or something like it, it helps with the healing process. 100%. I mean, it's like how, you know, reading ADHD rep for you helps you. I feel seen. Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, I feel like, not me personally, but I do feel like I'm being recognised for things that I've gone through in my life, or I'm still going through in my life. And I think that that is important to see in fictional work. 100%. It's how I feel about disability rep, or like, you know, characters of colour or whatever. Obviously, those things we're discussing are way less triggering or traumatic than something like child SA. I'm not calling it a different word, by the way, just so that the content doesn't get flagged. But I think the issue is not that it's in books, but the genre and the age range of the books.
Yeah.
Because I always thought, and maybe this is just me being wrong, I thought these books were originally YA.
I don't think that they were ever... I don't remember them ever being targeted as young adult books.
Okay, so maybe I've just, like, mistakenly...
We could both
We'll put
neither of us could be wrong.
We'll put it on screen.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have a look at that. And
yeah.
But the point... I feel like half the point here is that some teenagers do go through really traumatic things, and those types of people tend to become drawn to each other and trauma bond. Like, I didn't have the most conventional upbringing, and the friends that I grew close with over the years through different things and experiences were also people that had, like, not the best childhoods, or things that, you know, really triggered them and forced them to grow up far too young. And so I think, yes, I don't think that these books should be targeted at young readers, but these things do happen. They are realities.
Yeah.
And people coming into comments and saying, this shouldn't be happening because it's supposed to be a romance series. This isn't your book. You didn't fucking write this book.
Yeah.
You didn't fucking write this series. You took no part in it. You can choose whether or not to pick up the book, though.
Yeah.
So you don't get to decide for an author what happens in their art.
Yeah, especially because I think these books as well, right, were indie published first, I think.
I think so, yeah.
And then they got picked up trad.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find that when things are indie published, they cross genres a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as rigidly defined by genre because they are not confined by the traditional publishing marketing strategies. So yes, it might be romance, but it might also be women's fiction. It might also just be a bit of contemporary fiction.
Yeah.
You know, there are lots of authors that cross genres. I mean, I always feel like, we've talked about this, Jessa Hastings isn't quite just romance.
Catherine Cowles. She basically mixes romance with thriller. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Romantic
They're not
suspense.
Yeah.
There's definitely cross genres that exist. So I don't feel like saying this is a romance but it shouldn't have this is helpful. But it does lead me to think, like, do authors actually owe readers or BookTokers anything?
I feel like this is a super complex question, because I think when it comes to what they are writing, they are their stories, they're their babies. They think this up. Like, they put the hours of blood, sweat and tears into writing these books. But BookTokers especially, and bookstagrammers, are definitely what has made it possible for so many more authors to release their book, whether they've been picked up traditionally or whether they're publishing indie. There should be a certain level of gratitude, I guess, but I don't ever expect authors to, you know, personally thank me for, you know, what is lovely when, if I've posted something on my Instagram stories or my TikTok and they take the time to write back, I love it. I fangirl over it every time. But I personally don't think that authors do owe us as content creators or readers anything other than to generally be thankful and grateful that we're here, we want to listen, we want to read, we want to buy their books, we want to interact with them. A certain level of gratitude and respect is great, but when it comes to, you wouldn't tell an artist they had to paint it how you wanted it unless you paid them to paint a portrait of you. Do you know what I mean? 100%.
I completely agree with everything you've said there. Like everything you've said, especially because, like, when I started out on BookTok, I was doing a lot with indie authors specifically. And there are definitely still now some authors that interact with me, that comment on my posts, that say thank you, when I share their arcs. You know, I can think of probably about 5 that I would say, like, I would be comfortable messaging. And then there are bigger authors like Jessa Hastings, Lila Sage, who will react to my messages, comments, like my Instagram stories, but not kind of go any further than that. And I do think that's the best. I don't think authors should owe us anything, because the problem with social media is that it's unfortunately created this like parasocial relationship with authors. You feel like you know them, but you don't. You know their characters.
Yeah.
And we've seen what happens with that. I mean, not to bring it up again, but the Lauren Roberts Powerless situation.
Yeah.
People went crazy at Victoria Aveyard about Red Queen for copying it because they stan Lauren so much, and they feel like they know her and they want to protect her. But they were, that was wrong. They were in the wrong.
Back to the Luke Bateman situation, like, check your fucking facts. Like, publishing dates, that's all you've got to do. It's that fucking simple.
It literally came out like a decade before it. So I do think the authors that put boundaries in places and actually don't cross those lines are probably the ones doing it best and are avoiding these types of situations and these toxic fan bases. And it's something I always think about, like, well, if I was an author, what would I want to do? And unfortunately, I think you would have to put processes in place and not interact with fans, because if you do it with
you're
one...
gonna block me when you're a famous author.
Yeah. If you do it
with... fan!
But the thing is, if you do it with one person, you have to do it with all of them. So it's fair, but then not everyone's the same, you know?
Yeah, it's hard.
So I do think they don't owe us anything but a simple thank you message in their acknowledgements in the back of the book.
Yeah,
I really think that's it.
Yeah. And if they want to do more, because that's their personality type, that's absolutely fine. But as content creators or consumers of their books, their audiobooks, whatever, we shouldn't be placing expectations on them to do what we want. That's not okay.
Well, it's also like Jessa says, like, the story unfolds how it needs to be unfolded. If you put pressure on people to have certain characters end up with certain characters or a certain plot point to go in this direction, you're never going to get the best story, because you're just they're doing what you want rather than how the story naturally should unfold. So, yeah, 100%.
Speaking of her, I think that she does social media so well. Not to everyone's cup of tea, but I love the way that she backchats her fans. I feel like sometimes authors don't have enough balls, personally, when it comes to how people talk to them. And the way that she would just, like, pin a comment and be like, these are my fucking characters, my fucking books, and I'll write them when I'm good and ready. I really like that about her.
I think she's very British Aussie.
Yeah.
She is, isn't she? Like, you know, the sense of humour and everything, and the to the pointness is so us. But there are a couple of things sometimes she does where I'm like, oh, maybe they were just asking a simple question there. Did it need to be sassy? But, you know, to each their own.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I mean, like I say, I still love her.
Yeah.
I absolutely love her. And yeah, like I said, to each their own, but it is crazy out there.
It's a fucking wild world.
It's the Wild West on BookTok and Instagram.
So yeah, a very chaotic, I feel like, few weeks on BookTok. It's been intense. We want to know what you think. Drop a comment here, DM us. We want to hear what you have to say on these things. Don't forget to subscribe to all of our channels. Episodes drop every other week. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Bye.